Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Angry Jay here yet again. Diving back into my team breakdowns for the Sega Genesis. We are still in the Norris division, now reaching the non-playoff teams, and we're going to start off with the Dallas Stars. So, the interesting thing about the Stars here is that this was their first year in Dallas, but the 92-93 season, which this game is reflected upon, was actually their last season in Minnesota. So, within this game, they're actually looking obviously to the 93-94 season, which is why the Stars are in Dallas, and maybe is their way of trying to sell more copies in Texas. So they definitely did want to have the old North Stars in the game as opposed to the new up-and-coming Dallas Stars. And Dallas is one of my personal least favorite teams in the NHL these days. They've had a long storied rivalry with the San Jose Sharks, which unfortunately from my side is the Dallas Stars have had the winning share of that rivalry, especially in the playoffs, as the Dallas Stars have eliminated the Sharks on several occasions, unfortunately. So it's a little bit of a bittersweet type of team breakdown here for me, but I'm going to pretend they're the Minnesota North Stars. And if you're familiar with the NHL history from way back when, the San Jose Sharks actually were disbanded from the Dallas Stars back in '91 because originally the California Golden Seals moved to Cleveland. Then Cleveland merged with Minnesota after Cleveland wasn't a viable NHL market in the 70s. So those two teams, Cleveland, Minnesota, played on under the Minnesota colors for about 15 years, give or take. And then after that, the Dallas Star, the Minnesota North Star owners at the time wanted to move the team somewhere else. NHL wouldn't let them, so they just let them buy a new team instead, the expansion team in San Jose. And then San Jose got some players from Dallas. And then after that, Dallas joined San Jose in the expansion draft to help fill their roster back up with some players. So just some interesting history there for you if you were interested. If you weren't, then too bad. Well, you got a lesson anyway, so the joke's on you. Anyway, so back to Minnesota's or Dallas's final season in Minnesota, 92-93. They went 36, 38, and 10 for 82 points. This put them in 5th place in the Norris Division, just 3 points behind the Blues, who qualified for the playoffs. So Minnesota's last season up north ran a little shorter than they would have liked, I'm sure. In 94, Dallas has a low home ice advantage, so they're not going to get any bonuses at home. And then on the road, they're going to have a low disadvantage. So that'll help mitigate some of the road problems that you'll have with this team. So say you're going up against Chicago, who has a strong home ice advantage. You're going to help mitigate some of that by having a low road disadvantage for Dallas. So this is one of those things that makes Dallas actually a pretty legitimate team within their tier and actually moving up a tier if need be in tournament play. So what tier is Dallas in? Well, they're in tier 3, and that tier has some equally good teams in it that are very skilled, but also have some warts, and we're going to learn about Dallas's warts here pretty soon. So you want to use Dallas against the Rangers, Quebec, and Toronto. The nice thing about Dallas is you can really take them up the ladder pretty easily because of their skating ability. So they can go up against Calgary, LA, Boston, Montreal. You can even take a Vancouver on. You just really want to wouldn't want to take them up against Detroit or Chicago, and probably stay away from Buffalo too, because Buffalo's got just too much skill, I think, for Dallas. So some strengths for Dallas. This is an exceptionally fast team, probably the second fastest team in the game after Vancouver, even faster than Buffalo and Detroit, because Dallas has two players that have elite speed, not necessarily skating in terms of Courtnall, who's a little low on the agility, but we'll dive into that soon enough. Dallas also has a great manual goalie, Jon Casey. He is just a wizard back there in user control. Dallas is also a weight bug checking team, very strong at it. Up front, they have some very good options, and in the back line, they have one decent option, which allows them to really put the screws to the heavier teams in the league. Another strength that they have is that they climb up the ladder very easily due to their aforementioned speed and road ice disadvantage being low. And lastly, this team creates a lot of chances on offense. So you're not going to be just trying to scrape a few chances together and hoping you make them. You're going to get a lot of chances with Dallas if you're playing with them correctly. And this should help you stay in pretty much any matchup. Some weaknesses for Dallas. this team is weight bug reliant. So if you're a CV checking type of guy, or if you're going up against a team that has a lot of weight bug players on it, like Vancouver or Detroit, Dallas, you have to play a little bit more honest with them. You just can't use your speed to run people over and take control of the game. Another weakness that Dallas has is that they are unreliable shooters. They have very low shot accuracy on this team, despite some of the great shot power ratings that this team does possess. You're going to get frustrated a lot because of how much they do miss the net. Their second defenseman is a bit of a turnstile. Whether you go with the heavyweight Tenorti or the very average Jim Johnson, you're just not going to get a lot of production out of this spot. When you're not using Jon Casey in manual goalie control, his AI goalie control is average to maybe a little bit above average if you're lucky some games. So you got to really use that manual goalie control to get the most out of him. And then lastly, Dallas, I think, is one of the tougher teams in the game to play consistent with because of their lack of shooting acumen, and some games their skills will also take a serious hit. So let's go ahead and look at a line here. I think they have 3 forwards that are really, head and shoulders above the rest, and how you put them in the lineup is kind of up to you and what your comfort levels are. I tend to put Modano in the middle because I think he's the best shooter, and I like having his speed and stick handling in the center. And then Courtnall, I think, is just a good outside guy. And then Broughton is your main defensive option. So let's go ahead and look at Neil Broughton here. He's nothing too special skill-wise. He has 4 agility, 4 speed. If you're unfamiliar with the attributes and ratings in NHL 94, please refer to the description below, and it'll describe what the different ranges are. The ranges are 0 through 6, and they'll give you the attribute ranges within those, the attributes within those ranges, I should say, to help clear any confusion. So 4 agility, 4 speed for Broughton. Very good skate. Not a very good skater, but definitely good, especially with his lightweight, which helps him move around more quickly. He has 3 offensive awareness, 5 defensive awareness, so should be in pretty good spots defensively, which is exactly where you want him because he's a defensive forward. He has 3 shot power, 2 accuracy, so he's not really going to finish a lot of chances, but he might blow away the weaker goalie from time to time. He has 4 passing and 3 stick handling, so the playmaking is nice, but you definitely want to keep him more towards the outside because that lack of stick handling really makes it tough for him to get into the slot and make a lot of things happen. So you just kind of want to dance on the outside and make defenders miss if you can. 172 pounder means he's a weight bug checking machine. So he's going to be absolutely fantastic on defense. This is the guy you want to use or control if you're not chasing the play. And what I mean by not chasing the play is like you're not back checking, trying to track down a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2. Like if you're already set up in your own zone, Neil Broughton's a guy you want to control because he's just the best. He's the easiest guy to handle skating wise, and he's also the best checker on the team. In AI mode, he's got 3 checking. He's not going to be much of a CV checker, so if you try to check Jeremy Roenick or Theo Fleury or Andrei Kovalenko with Neil Broughton, you might not have that much success. So you want to use poke checks in those situations, but pretty much against the majority of players in the league, especially if they weigh 188 pounds or more, Neil Broughton can just railroad them, and he's gonna have a lot of success on defense. Offensively, he's limited, of course, but you have some other options to help you on that side of the ice, namely Mike Modano, the American. Played a very long time with Dallas, probably upwards of 20 years, and then all of a sudden played for Detroit at the very end of his career. Very odd how that broke down, but during this season, he was an extremely gifted player. He had 5 agility, 5 speed, so his skating is absolutely supreme. He has 4 offensive awareness, 4 defensive awareness, so nothing too special there. But the special thing about him to go along with his skating is his 5 shot power. He is going to make goalies' heads spin because he's just going to blow the puck by some of these goalies, and they're not going to have any chance. The only chance that they have is he either hits him right in the chest protector or Modano misses the net completely with his 2 accuracy. Mike Modano is going to cause a lot of frustration because of his inability to hit the net, but he's also going to bail you out of a lot of situations where, if the player didn't have as much shot power, the goalie would have time to save it. Mike Modano can at least blow the puck by in certain situations to help make up for the goals he does just kind of throw away, essentially. As a playmaker, he's got 4 passing, which is fine, but another key feature to Mike Modano is his 5 stick handling, which means he is well suited to just slashing through the middle of the ice and tearing defenses apart and hopefully getting a lot of in-close chances to take advantage of, and he'll be a lot less likely to miss those, fortunately for you. 186 pounder means he's a middleweight, so he's fairly resistant to most of the players in the game, but you do need to watch out for CB checks from big defenders in this tier, like James Patrick, namely, and Dave Ellett. The weight buggers in this tier are not going to have a lot of luck trying to take him down, so feel free to attack aggressively with Modano and try and create a lot of chances, because you're going to need it. And then the last component to this line is Russ Courtnall. He has 5 agility, 6 speed. Some people do not like this combination of lower agility than speed, so just be aware of this, that in some games Courtnall may not have the ability to kind of wiggle around or do quick dekes or float shots as well as you might like, because his agility might be a little lower in those cases. So just trying to get a good feel for what Courtnall can do in a game and then adjust to that, because you definitely want to try and take advantage of his speed one way or another, because it does cause a lot of problems for the defense. He has 4 offensive awareness, 3 defensive awareness, so average there. 4 shot power means he has a little juice to sneak a slap shot by somebody if they're not paying attention, but 3 accuracy means he's also going to miss his fair share of chances. So this entire line, Broughton 2 accuracy, Modano 2 accuracy, Courtnall 3 accuracy, not reliable at all, especially at this tier level. You need to create chances, and you need to use your speed to get in close to the net to aid yourself in converting some of your chances, because if you just try and blast slap shots with this team, there's going to be some games where you're just not going to score at all, and that's going to be really difficult to keep up with the other team in that situation. 3 passing, 3 stick handling means he's not really well suited to be a center, but he can be put at center in a pinch, especially if you're really good at creating breakaways or 2-on-1s or something, to where you're not necessarily cutting through an entire team's defense to get to the net. 188 pounds, same thing with Modano, essentially. Not a lot of guys in this tier are going to take him down with weight bug checks, so you really need to watch out for the CB checkers in this tier. The defensemen I already mentioned, and even the guys on the Rangers like Messier and Tikkanen up front, they can really lay the hurt on Courtnall, as well as Doug Gilmour. Now that I remember him, he is the one guy that can weight bug check in this tier, so just be aware of those guys. So I think these are easily the 3 best forwards on this team. I'll talk about some options real quickly. The main one that you'll want to keep in mind, I think, in all situations, regardless of who gets hurt, I think Dave Gagne is your first guy off the bench. 4 agility, 4 speed, 4 offensive awareness, 4 defensive awareness, 3 shot power, 4 accuracy, so he's a little bit more reliable than the rest of your team. 4 passing, 4 stick handling, 188 pounds. He's just a nice, balanced player. The only reason I don't start him for the Dallas Stars is because their defense is a little bland, I think. I would consider them average at best. So you want a lot of personality in your front line, and I think Broughton with his defensive ability, Modano with his speed and scoring, and Courtnall with his speed and scoring as well, they provide a lot of strengths to this line. Whereas Gagne is just a nice, even keel player. I don't think he helps Dallas be the best team they can be. So that's why he's on the bench for me. I do notice that some people will use him, and there's nothing really wrong with that if you're looking for a guy that's just average across the board, a little bit more reliable, but he doesn't have that high ceiling that everybody else I've already mentioned has before. He is your main sub. There's a couple other guys you can look at. Ulf Dahlin. The problem with him is he doesn't have very good agility. 3 agility and 4 speed, so he's a little hard to handle. 3 shot power, 4 accuracy, 3 passing, 4 stick handling, 204 pounds. Not much of a CB checker. Kind of susceptible to weight buggers. Not really fast enough to get away from them. Not skilled enough to overwhelm them. So he's definitely a bench option. You got Mike Craig. This was a guy that Dallas really valued in the early 90s, but his ratings don't really tell you that. This was actually a guy that in the dispersal draft with the Sharks that Minnesota actually sent a extra first-round pick. The Sharks waited to not have them pick Mike Craig because they couldn't protect Mike Craig for whatever reason in that draft. So instead of getting Mike Craig, the Sharks got Ray Whitney. I think that was a pretty good trade. So just thought I'd mention that. Another little tidbit of history that you may not have been expecting today. 3 agility, 3 speed, average awareness, 3 shot power, 3 accuracy, 3 passing, 4 stick handling is the only thing that stands out about Mike Craig. 188 pounds. Very average player. Another average player that I prefer over Craig, honestly, is Brent Gilchrist. 4 agility, 3 speed, lower awareness, 2 in each, 3 shot power, 2 accuracy, 3 passing, 4 stick handling. I just like the extra agility at this weight, 188 pounds over Mike Craig, and I'm willing to deal with the lower skills. And then lastly, if you have to have a CB option for whatever reason, where did he go? Mike McPhee, there he is. That's your man for CB checking. 4 agility, 3 speed, makes him a decent skater. 3 offensive awareness, 3 defensive awareness, 3 shot power, 2 accuracy, 2 passing, 2 stick handling. Pretty poor skill ratings. 212 pounds, 4 checking. That's your CB. That's your CB guy though. No two ways around it. He is probably the best skater at this weight class on this team, and he can lay the lumber. And he might be able to score a few goals if set up for some easy chances, but definitely not a recommended option above Broughton, Modano, or Courtnall. That's who you really want to run with. And then defense. This is where things start to fall apart for Dallas. Let's just talk about Stodine first, because he's your obvious number one. He's got 4 agility, 3 speed. I like putting him on the right side where he's natural over there because he's a right-hander. It just makes his passing easier, his skating and puck handling easier. It just makes life easier for him, and that's what you want for defenders that aren't naturally, special or gifted. You just want them to have an easier time back there, and putting them on our natural side is one way to do that, I believe. He has 3 offensive awareness, 3 defensive awareness, 4 shot power, 1 accuracy, so you don't really want to skate up the ice too much with him and try and rip a slapper because he's not going to be too successful too often. 3 passing, 3 stick handling, pretty average there. 188 pounds, your best weight bug defenseman by far. You just want to play a good, simple game with Stodine. Use the body when possible, but otherwise just kind of hold your line, use your poke check, and then once you have the puck on your stick, just try to get it up front to Modano or Courtnall and let them blaze up the ice because that's what they do best. Your number 2 spot, that's where things get a little bit trickier. Mark Tenorti, option number 1, nothing special. 3 agility, 3 speed, kind of slow. 3 offensive awareness, 4 defensive awareness, 4 shot power, 3 accuracy. That's the one nice thing about Tenorti, is that he does have a decent shot. This is pretty rare to have 3 shot accuracy with good shot power for a defenseman, so you want to try and take advantage of that, even though it's really difficult with him being 212 pounds and pretty slow. He's going to be an easy target to take down, but if he gets any space in the offensive zone and you have the ability to rip one, feel free with Mark Tenorti. You might just find the back of the net. His passing, pretty weak at 2, so it's going to be hard to kickstart the offense and find one of your faster forwards with his passing ability. It's going to be pretty inaccurate and pretty floaty and slow. 3 stick handling, nothing special there. 4 checking, 212 pounds, 3-3 skater. He's going to be decent CB checker, but there's a lot of fast teams in this tier, or a lot of very agile skaters that you'll have to deal with, and it might be hard for Tenorti to keep up. He's probably better off in some of the lower tier matchups, like say for instance if you're going up against a tier 4 team or a tier 5 team for whatever reason. Tenorti might be fine. Otherwise, he's going to struggle on defense if you try to get too aggressive. Your other option, Jim Johnson, 2 agility, 3 speed, so pretty poor skater. Really has trouble shadowing the other team because of his lack of agility. Just doesn't turn well or start or stop well enough to really be a shadow. 2 offensive awareness, 4 defensive awareness is fine, whatever. 2 shot power, 1 accuracy, you're not going to use it, or 2 accuracy, you're not going to use it, so don't worry about it. 4 passing, that's the main draw here for Jim Johnson. He's going to help you get those breakout passes to be more accurate and more zippy than Mark Tenorti for sure. This is why I prefer Jim Johnson, despite the lack of skating and other skills. 3 stick handling, 196 pounds makes him a middleweight, so I would prefer just to have a guy I feel is more reliable back there. I feel like Jim Johnson is a bit more reliable. He doesn't just skate up the ice as much as Tenorti into the offensive zone, and that passing is pretty sweet. Another guy you can think about if you have to really test your depth is Richard Matvichuk. 2 agility, 3 speed, 1 offense awareness, 3 defensive, 3 shot power, 0 accuracy, 2 passing, 3 stick handling, 196 pounds. Another middleweight defenseman, just not as good as Jim Johnson, obviously, so that's why he's the backup. And then lastly, one guy you may have to worry about coming onto the ice in default situations, if you're, say, going to the penalty box, is Craig Ludwig. He is a very bad player. in this game. 2 agility, 2 speed, 1 awareness on offense, 3 defense, 2 shot power, 0 accuracy, 2 passing, 2 stick handling, 236 pounds, 3 checker. I mean, he can CB check a guy if he gets anywhere near them, but with that skating and that skill set, it's just not worth it. So if he's on the ice, and if you have the chance to do so, please sub him out for Matt Tkachuk or Tenorti or even Darian Hatcher, who's very similar to Matt Tkachuk and Jim Johnson. Just don't let Craig Ludwig tank your efforts, because if you let him on the ice, he's just going to give up goals and chances left and right. Lastly, let's talk about Jon Casey. He's got 4 agility, 3 puck control, or his rebound control is 3, and then his save ratings are mostly 2s on the stick, 2 on the stick, 3 on the glove, with a 4 sprinkled in there. The thing about Jon Casey that makes him a fantastic user control goalie is his weight, 156 pounds. The lighter a goalie is, the faster they move around, they accelerate faster. You can really play mind games with Jon Casey on your opponent, because he has the 4 agility and the 156 pounds. It's just a great combination for manual goaltending. You can pretty much do whatever you want with Casey. You almost have to be a little careful that you don't fly around the crease too much, because he just moves around so effortlessly. So that's really one strength on this team that kind of goes unsung in some cases, because you look at Jon Casey, you just think, oh, he's a 60 overall. He's an average goalie at best. No, Jon Casey is an elite manual goalie control option. In AI mode, he's okay, but if you love to use manual goalie control, Dallas just becomes a better team overall with him at your disposal. So let's talk about some key things to keep in mind when using the stars. You want to keep the pedal to the metal with this team. You got speed, use it, and try and create chances and just create havoc on the ice and make your opponent not know what's going on to the best of your ability. Because if they can't register what's going on the ice, they're not going to be successful in making plays or trying to play defense or anything for that matter. With Dallas, shoot from everywhere. You never know what type of rebounds you might get off the goalie, off the glass, off other players, and you might set up some really easy chances for yourself on those rebounds. Also, you have great shot power on this team with Mike Modano, so you might blow a puck by a goalie that just might not be expecting it. And also, this team is not very accurate, so don't just try and focus on making 3 or 4 perfect chances every game, because you worry about your shot accuracy. What you want to do is just try and make 20-25 chances and hope 4 or 5 of them go in. I think that's just a better strategy with Dallas. With Dallas, you also want to back check really hard. Typically, you want to use Mike Modano as your back checker, because he's a better defensive option than Russ Courtnall. Russ Courtnall's kind of hard to handle, especially if his agility is a little lower in a certain game, because he's on a cold streak or whatever. So use Modano on your back checks, and Neil Broughton as your second option, because he can just run right through people if he catches up with them. Another thing to keep in mind is you don't want to rely on your defense for too much of anything, whether it be defense or offense or hard hitting or whatever. You just want to keep them involved in the play. You don't want them to try and be chasing things down, because they're not fast enough to do that, and you don't want to try and create all the offense with them, because they're just simply not able to do that in terms of skill. You also want to use Jon Casey as much as possible. If you're not much of a manual goalie player, you may want to shy away from Dallas a bit until you get used to manual goalie, because that's really a key feature of this team that you're leaving on the table. And then lastly, this is the perfect team to play the trap with. Their forwards are just really good at influencing the play on defense. So if you can make your opponent, stay to the outside or keep them to the perimeter when they do get into your zone, this is a perfect team to try and do such a thing with. So I'm going to take a quick drink of water here, because I'm getting a little parched. And now we're going to play our game against the Calgary Flames. So Calgary is not a tier 3 team. They are a tier 2 team. Why am I going up a tier with Dallas? I just want to kind of illustrate, if I can, or if Modano lets me, because he will miss the net oftentimes. So this might be a really low scoring game or a really high scoring game, depending on Modano's ability to hit the net, or Courtnall driving to the net, getting there. So Dallas's skating really allows them to climb up the ladder very easily. This is one of the fastest teams in the game, and they have enough skill to be relevant. because you can just quick strike offense with this team. You know, if you can drive to the net and you can take advantage of a player who doesn't get their manual goalie control fast enough. Dallas is never really out of the game, even if they're down 3-4 goals, and you wonder, okay, how am I going to score 3-4 goals with this team that, you know, that hardly ever hits the net? Well, you just want to, you know, try and get as close to the net as possible. If your opponent allows you to. There's an instance there where Courtnall's agility or lack thereof was a hindrance. So if you can get your opponent into a wide open game, this really behooves you with Dallas, because you can just create chances from in close, and then your speed's really gonna just wreak havoc. And I'm actually surprised at how much we're hitting the net. I'm gonna try slapper until I get hit by Joe Nieuwendyk there. So, you know, and I think the best defense in 94 is a good offense, and with Dallas's speed and ability to recover the puck because they're a good defensive team, I think they're well suited to playing up against these upper echelon teams, because they can just hold on to the puck for a lot of the time in the game and make other teams come to them. And if a team's trying to come at you and they miss, and you have a team as fast as Dallas, you're gonna create a lot of problems for your opponent, and they're gonna have some serious issues. I mean, I've seen guys, despite the lack of shot accuracy on this team, I've seen guys just run it up in league play. You know, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 goals. They just light it up if you give them an inch. So you really have to be careful when playing against Dallas, and you definitely don't want to play a safe, conservative game with Dallas when you have the puck, because, you know, making your opponent respect you and be a little bit scared of you is a huge weapon for Dallas. Because maybe your opponent thinks about something a little bit longer than they might otherwise, or they're a little bit slow to react to something because they're looking, you know, trying to slow the game down, but you're just taking it right to them, and they just can't react fast enough. So that's the nice thing about Dallas, is if you're in a tournament, you can feel pretty good about picking Dallas, because there's not many bad matchups for them. Like I said, there's maybe Detroit, maybe Chicago. Those are the only truly bad matchups for them. Any other game, if you play well enough, you can win with Dallas. The only problem is, you know, can you make them consistent? Can you keep the puck away from the defense or your own defense? Because if you have to play too much defense with Dallas, you're asking for problems, unless you're just a magnificent user goalie control player. So this Dallas is one of those teams you really want to put some time in with. You don't want to just go in blind with them and start picking random matchups, because that's a good way to kind of cause a lot of problems for yourself, because, you know, their skill, they can kind of, if they don't get the chances, if they kind of get outplayed, they don't really have much of a chance. Whereas some other teams like Detroit, where you can maybe outplay Detroit, but they're so good at converting their chances and making everything count when they do it right. Like, you know, if you give Detroit a chance in the slot, they're not going to miss it. If you give Dallas a chance in the slot, it's 50-50. So you can't just, you know, sneak victories away with Dallas. You have to have a plan. You have to have experience with them, because they're a little bit tricky to use because of their speed, and their defense is kind of weird because it's not very good, especially in this tier. So if you're not careful, Dallas can kind of blow up in your face. But if you know how to use Dallas, and there's some people in this community that really know how to use Dallas. I mean, there's Swos. He was good with Dallas for a long time. He won a classic league with them. He used a very defensive, opportunistic style, so he would kind of make you come to him on defense. He would, you know, take advantage of a turnover, or, you know, you making a bad decision, and then he would take the puck up the ice in an odd man situation, and then, you know, just take advantage of it. He'd be very opportunistic in that manner. Then there's Ice Storm, who I think Dallas is one of his top 5 teams in the game. And he loves manual goalie control, and he loves speed and pass shots, and just taking advantage of people not playing a solid game. So Dallas' ceiling is extremely high. I think Cars won a league with Dallas. If you're not familiar with Cars, back in the early 2010s, He was one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant players online at the time, and he would regularly take teams with speed and some skill like Dallas, Calgary, Vancouver, deep into the playoffs, and I would oftentimes win with those teams. So those are really some. This was also in the time when the weight bug was not opposed by a CB check. We only found about the CB check a couple years ago. So heavier teams like the New York Rangers, for instance, have an easier time dealing with Dallas these days. Same with LA and Vancouver to some extent, and Buffalo. So Dallas isn't quite as dominant as they were, say, 6-7 years ago when Cars was really running things online. But this is still a really good team that, in the hands of a experienced player, will look like a tier 1 team. But if you put them in the hands of somebody who doesn't really know how to use them, or doesn't really like fast teams with little defense, they're going to look like a tier 4 or tier 5 team. So I think it's kind of safer to put Dallas right in the middle of the tiers. Tier 3, they play well with Quebec and Toronto and the Rangers, because I think those teams are more consistent, or in the Rangers' case, they're just as volatile and dangerous with speed. They're essentially the Dallas Stars, but CB checking instead of weight bug checking. So I think they go well together. And then when you're looking at tier 2, I think those teams are just more consistent, or they have more elite skill with very good skating. Like Calgary has not quite as good of a skating skill set, but their puck skills are definitely better, and their defense is a little bit more consistent, although you can get in trouble with that defense as well because of the fire wagon hockey that they like to play in Calgary, or Calgary as they say in Canada. So got things clicking here with Dallas. Helps that I'm going up against Vernon, but it also helps that my team is hitting the net. Because if I'm not hitting the net, it doesn't really matter if it's Ed Belfour or Peter Sidorkovich in between the pipes. You're just not going to score because you didn't hit the net. But right now, Dallas is just clicking. I think I used Dallas in a classic season once upon a time. I don't think I won. I think I got to the semis or the finals, or I don't really remember. It was a long time ago. I've been playing online for off and on for 12 years now. Wow, 12 years. But yeah, I played probably 10 classic seasons, maybe 12, and I've tried to pick a different team every time, and there was one season I did get to pick Dallas, and it was a really fun season. Dallas is definitely a fun team if you get them going. Even if you don't get them going, you just like going fast with your players and causing problems for the other team. Dallas is just a lot of fun to use. You're definitely not going to be bored to tears or feeling like your team is in quicksand. This is definitely a go team that I think a lot of people do like. I mean, like I said, this is a faux tier 1 team if you know how to use them. You can take them into tournaments, and you can pick some matchups where you give up a tier or 2, and you're probably still going to be fine. I know Dallas is one team that I will try to stay away from in tournaments if it's up to me, because I don't like how inconsistent they are. But if someone puts them in a matchup, I have no issues picking them, especially if the situation is right. Like if I'm facing a team with a low home ice disadvantage, or a home ice advantage, like Calgary, for instance, or sorry, not Calgary, Quebec or Vancouver. Teams with lower home ice advantages, I'm not as afraid of picking Dallas because I feel like I'm going to get a pretty even game there. I'm not going to have to deal with some crazy advantages for one team or crazy disadvantages for my own. It's just going to be a pretty even game, and I'm going to have a fast team to create a lot of problems with. So I wouldn't really want to call them because I have other matchups I would prefer, but I got no issues picking them in a certain situation. So that's the Dallas Stars. That's a pretty good game with them. I'm pretty happy with that one. I think I won 3-0 with the Blues. That was pretty poor. So this is a nice return to form. Been playing a little too much DOS hockey lately, so trying to get back used to playing Gens, and it seems like it's going okay. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and you learned something about the Dallas Stars today, who were formerly the Minnesota North Stars. They're kind of in a transition period here. They're a little confused about who they are in this game, but they're still a pretty good team once you get them rolling. So I'll be back with the next video. That'll be the Tampa Bay Lightning, who were, yes, in the Norris division in the 92-93 season. So hope you guys join me for that one. I'll see you then. Bye.